Hello, and welcome to Character Class. Today, today I'd like to talk to you about Mage the Ascension, specifically one of the spheres. I'm going to do a little bit of a little bit of a series here with this video, and I don't know when the other ones will be coming out, but they will in the future, because I want to specifically talk about each of the spheres in more detail, as well as give a few examples as to how they're used and how you can use them for each level. Now, as always, keep in mind that, as I mentioned in one of my other videos about Mage the Ascension, that when you are using magic, any rolls you do for magic, you're going to be rolling your Arete level. And you can never have a level of sphere that is higher than your current Arete level. So if you have an Arete of 2, then any magic you're going to be rolling, you're only rolling 2 dice. And you can only have level 2 spheres, depending on what you've learned. So only level 2. That's the way it works for 2 Arete. 3 Arete, you can have up to level 3 spheres. 4 Arete up to level 4, and so on. I'm only doing the first 5 levels of the spheres. There are levels 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, but those are considered arc spheres, which is the domain of archmages. And that is a whole another ball of wax I'm not getting into. So we're going to start today with correspondence, the first of these spheres that is listed alphabetically because we like order, and alphabetical order is the best order. So correspondence is your manipulation over space, basically. It deals with interrelationships, sympathetic links, all become clear through the study of correspondence by bending space or bypassing it entirely. Mage can travel rapidly, fly, or teleport from place to place. Now, the first level in correspondence gives you immediate spatial perceptions. That is the little bit of a note for what you get. For level 2 correspondence, you get sense space and touch space. Level 3, you get pierce space, seal gate, and colocality perception. Don't worry about all these little things I'm saying. I will get into more detail in a bit. Level 4 spheres are rend space and colocate self. And level 5 is mutate localities and collocation. So, first we'll go with immediate spatial perceptions. Now, usually, pretty much every level 1 in a sphere tends to be mostly concerned with sensing. It tends to mostly be sensory magic. Like level 1 forces, you can sense forces. Level 1 life, you can sense life. And so on and so forth. There are one or two exceptions to that rule, or additions to it, where you can actually accomplish something pretty neat with a level 1 sphere, but for the most part, it's all sensory magic for level 1. Now, immediate spatial perceptions. As it says here, basic understanding of correspondence allows a mage to develop precise and intuitive judgments of distance or area. A simple effect enhances the mage's awareness of space to determine exact directions and distances. So with level 1 spheres, they tend to list some correspondence effects, what are known as spells that you can pull off for every level in the book. They give you sense connection is one of those. You can make up your own spells or decide to use your magic in different ways, but sense connection is one of them. And sense connection allows you to sense distortions of space. So if another mage, has used correspondence to link a door to another place far away so that they can just step through the door and travel hundreds of miles, with level 1 sphere sense connection, you can sense that disturbance because correspondence space has been manipulated and it gives off a certain vibe to the mage. You can also determine whether or not someone is scrying you or whether an object is being manipulated remotely. There's Landscape of the Mind, one of the most basic correspondence exercises. It opens the mage's awareness to the surroundings without recourse to normal senses. With concentration and ritual, the mage can feel or perceive a great area of space, although extreme areas are both difficult to encompass magically and difficult to process mentally. So with Landscape of the Mind, you can literally be blind, you can be deaf, you can have no sense of touch, and you can still bring up correspondence of the mind and get a sense of your entire surroundings. So you can move yourself around without bumping into everything. Um, but that only gives you a sense of the space around you. That's one of the things about magic. If you wanted to, say, for example, take a mental magical snapshot of an area as to how everything is around you, you would get the buildings, or more accurately, you would get where those buildings are. You would feel that there is a barrier there, not what it's made of. If you wanted to know what it's made of, you'd have to use matter. If you wanted to know if there was any life around you, you'd have to use life. Forces like electricity, fire, any sort of dangerous environment that is bursting with energy, like fire, as I said, you would have to use forces to trigger that, among other things. It's all a matter of how you combine your spells. There's also Where Am I, which is an absolute sense of space, giving the mage a perfect determination of her relative location. Combined with Spirit, the mage can even intuit location in the spirit worlds. So basically, Where Am I basically is it basically gives you a very good idea of where you are in relation to everything else around you. So if you get lost in a city, you can crack that spell off and be like, okay, I'm here. I know where I live or where I have to go now because I know where I am. So it can be very, very handy to have. Now that's just level 1. Level 2 is Sense Space and Touch Space. This lets you scry, which means you can look at places that are far distant from you, places that you may not even be able to get into physically. You can scry it using level 2 correspondence, which lets you spy on people, unless they're protected, because they can be protected. You can also touch and feel something physically at a distance and possibly manipulate it. So with Sense Space and Touch Space, you get to do fun things about seeing it and physically touching it. You can combine your correspondence magic with other pattern spheres, which is any of the other 8 spheres, to affect small patterns at distance. So you could reach out and touch a stone from a far distance, and then use matter with correspondence to pull it into your hand. So if you wanted to steal something small in a locked room, you could use magic to reach out, your correspondence magic to reach out, touch the thing you want, and use matter and correspondence to basically pluck it right from that room into your hand from a distance. So Lots of correspondence mages can do things like that. You can also do the opposite by taking it and going, bump, putting it somewhere. Mm. Uh, says similarly, the mage could deposit an animal some distance away with a touch and a conjunctional use of correspondence life. As with all uses of pattern spheres with correspondence, the mage is limited to his lesser understanding of the possible effects. In conjunction with other spheres, long-range correspondence allows the mage to seek out someone in order to establish mental contact or read thoughts, project probability manipulation at a far distance, search for powerful sources of quintessence, to manipulate or even look into distant spirit worlds. So you can use correspondence too to gather knowledge, to manipulate controls from a distance, to steal things, to give things to other people, to establish mental contact with your the other player characters from a distance, which is really cool. Level 3, Pierce, Space, Seal Gate, and Colocality Perception. Now those are three things that are kind of interesting. Now, what you can do with level 3 is you can, well, I almost forgot the effects for level 2. Apportation, which we already covered because you can pop something in your hand from a distance. Correspondence Sensing, which lets you scry, as I mentioned, and Ward. Ward is the level 2. It basically lets you, because you can now scry things from a distance, you can also prevent people from scrying you by setting up a correspondence ward around you. And unless you have that, they can just scry on you as long as they have the connections and the appropriate successes. Now we're on to level 3. Level 3 is Pierce Space. You can literally tear the fabric of reality itself. You can create a portal, a hole, which you can walk through to get from one place to the other. As long as you are familiar with it, the locations, or you have the required successes to pull it off, you can literally open a portal, step through to the other side, portal closes behind you. I don't believe this lets you, where is it? Yeah, a brief gateway to other places and step through. So it's only brief. You can't have a permanent one with level 3. You also have a seal gate, which is you strengthen the bonds of space instead of warping them. You can seal gateways and block off passages, block the passage of correspondence effects. You could actually bar an area from passage, be it mundane or through correspondence. Such an effect prevents transportation in an area, and it can be cast over patterns other than the mage itself. So, also, with this level of understanding and correspondence, you have colocality perception, which lets you literally perceive, split your perceptions over several locations at once. Although you can only open a door to a single place or manipulate individual patterns without major effort, you can use your scrying to view multiple places simultaneously. So you could experience the show in any form appropriate to your paradigm, ghostly superimposed images, or a series of small simultaneous images for different places. You can also teleport patterns or move objects from a distance. Yes. So with colocality perception, you're getting all of this information. Like you can literally be viewing 3 different locations at the same time with your colocality perception. And it's usually a good idea to have some mind if you're going to do that, because you empower your mind with mind magic to not only be able to observe multiple locations at once, but to observe them without being distracted by the other locations that you're observing. So you can you can train your mind with magic to basically take in multiple streams of information at the same time and process them all concurrently, which is fun. We have level 4. Oh wait, no, first we got here. Chain is a level 3 effect. As above, so below. Links often bear similar resonance, and changing one can change the other. With correspondence magic, a mage can strengthen or weaken ties between objects or places. Such a chain makes for a powerful tool in building magical links, and a good way to defend against correspondence senses and attacks. A simple chain effect lets the mage change the attachment between two patterns as expressed on the correspondence ranges chart. Now I'm going to briefly talk about that here now. That's in page 209. So let's go to page 209. There we are. Now the correspondence range is basically how close, correspondence-wise, you are to the target of your spell, is basically what it is. And how many successes you need then to pull off an effect for that range. So if you only need one success, the range is line of sight. So anywhere you can see within reason, because you could see to the horizon, but you couldn't affect there. So keep it within reason, players and storytellers, but line of sight. The connection for that is if you had a body sample of the person you wanted to attack. If you had some of their blood, their hair, skin, saliva, you had something of them. That makes it extremely easy to target somebody with correspondence magic because you have that intimate connection. So that's the amount of successes you need. One success for either of those conditions, either line of sight or if you have that body sample connection. 2 successes you need for something that's very familiar to you. So something that is yours, that you have around the house maybe, that you don't use all the time, but it's still very familiar to you. Or a place that you go to often, but not a place that you live. Favorite coffee shop. That could be very familiar to you. A close possession or companion. So if it's a close possession of someone, or the companion of someone, that could be a connection to them at 2 successes. So it's not as good as having a body sample, but it's better than having nothing at all. 3 successes is familiar for range, and acquaintance or object used once. No, wait, sorry. That is wrong. Possession or casual friend is the connection. So not a close possession, just a possession or a casual friend. 4 successes is visited once for range. Connection is acquaintance or object used once. 5 successes, described location, so you've never been there. Briefly touched or met object in person, or person. And then 6 successes or more, anywhere on Earth for range, no connection. There is actually a correspondence range of 0, which deals with any mages that happen to have a phylactery, which is a 7-point flaw in mage, which means you have an item that your avatar, what allows you to do magic, is bound into this item. So you have to use this item anytime you use magic, and you have to have it on you, and it has to be used prominently. So if you had a crown that your magic was bound into, anytime you wanted to do magic, you would have to wear that crown. If you ever lost that crown, you could not do magic. But because any phylactery is considered to be correspondence range of 0, your character always knows where it is. And it is extremely easy to get to it. But if you don't have it, then you can't do magic to teleport it. But you always know where it is in relation to you. That is correspondence range 0. So rend space, we haven't got there yet. The 7 league stride, that is the one that is basically you have like boots or a magic spell that lets you literally take a step, and that step is basically you're standing. You've got your left foot on the ground. You step with the right foot. As you're putting your right foot down and picking your left foot up, you are traveling 7 leagues, which is miles, because it's kind of a teleport in a way. And then you've got filter all space, spreading senses across the Tellurian, which is what they call reality, I believe. A mage can search for specific objects or creatures as she extends her senses. The early correspondence power of correspondence sensing may allow for scrying of specific areas or patterns, but this more advanced technique lets the mage look in many places at once. The mage senses everything going on in the places scryed, which may call for the judicious use of mind magic. A mage who isn't looking for anything in particular could simply split sensory perception across multiple locations and draw in a welter of sensory input, as I said earlier. So we got level 4 spheres now, rend space, and collocate self. Now the fun stuff about rending space, you don't only tear through reality to create warps. You can force them to remain instead of just sliding their own patterns along a brief slips of distance. You can literally create a freestanding wormhole or portal from one place to another that will remain as long as you maintain it. You can also make yourself be in 2 places at once or more. So you're not only perceiving other locations, it's not colocality perceptions, you're collocating your physical body. So I could be here and I could also be over there. And you have the perceptions to match, both coming in. But again, without mind magic, they can get jumbled. And because you are co-locating just yourself, you're not literally creating another body. You're simply being in 2 places at once. So, as such, you will react to stimuli from both of those locations. So if I was here, sitting here, and I co-located myself to a dangerous place, and something attacked me there in that dangerous place, me sitting here would react to that getting attacked, because I'm getting the perceptions from this place and the perceptions from the dangerous place. Hence why mind magic is usually used when you co-locate yourself to split your perceptions, so that the person here, me, the me here, would not be reacting to what's going on there. I could be doing research, I could be doing magic or something here, maybe, while the me there is maybe fighting or running away or hiding. You can do stuff like that. One thing to be kept in mind is that usually when you are splitting yourself like that, only one of yourselves is going to be the prime you, which is which one can do magic. The other ones usually can't. At least that's the way I tend to house rule it. Other storytellers may do it differently. Now, the effects that they have here for level 4 is Bubble of Reality. By removing a pattern from interaction with space, a correspondence adept can cause an object to exist in its own sort of pocket dimension. Actually, the subject exists beyond the bounds of space, but the distinction doesn't matter much. What's important is that normal space and reality can't interact with the target. However, the mage can still make correspondence connections between normal space and the bubbled subject, so that it's possible to see back out to the world or to scry on the object even if it's cocooned away. So you can literally wrap something or a room in a bubble of reality and separate it from the rest of the world with level 4 magic. Getting more powerful. Hermes Portal is the other one, which is freestanding gates or doorways. Pretty much the uh, go-to for the Order of Hermes, one of the particular traditions. Um, there's also polyappearance. Instead of disappearing from one place and appearing in another, an adept of correspondence, which is level 4, can choose to simply stack himself in multiple places simultaneously. As I said, just because the mage exists in multiple places doesn't mean he can cause those multiple objects to interact, though. The mage might grab or use something in one place, but it won't have any effect on the other places the mage exists unless additional correspondence magic teleports or co-locates the subject. They also suffer the consequences of everything in all the locations. As it says here, if a mage is in an open area and a small room at the same time, the walls of the small room block the mage's sight entirely, since there's still really only one mage. Just experience multiple spaces. Getting attacked by multiple people is a bad idea. So yeah, that's that. And then level 5 spheres. Mutate localities and co-location. Now, what's the difference between co-locate self and co-location? Well, we'll get into that in a second. Mutate localities, however, what does this say here? Stretch distances, alter volumes, spin around the very concepts of arcs or angles. A 3-foot long rod might be made to span an apparent 10 feet, or a gun could be folded so that its bullet comes out the apparently curving barrel heading towards the shooter, since the bullet travels along curved space and thus follows a straight line through a curved barrel. Yeah, that's the sort of stuff you can do with mutate localities. You can literally make a swimming pool be as deep as the ocean. You can make a hallway that is like 10 feet long stretch on forever. There's all kinds of fun stuff you can do with level 5, but usually it is vulgar, which is going to cause lots of paradox. Generally speaking, the higher up you go, the more vulgar magic tends to get, unless you get very creative. Then you got co-location. Just as an adept of correspondence can stack her perceptions or presence, the master can pull entire chunks of space together so that they can interact freely. Instead of gates through which things pass to travel, the whole areas become superimposed on one another. Objects and creatures can exist in 2 places simultaneously because the places are now a single location. Items could be made to overlap without damage. In effect, more than one thing can occupy a single space at one time, which is totally breaking the laws of physics. So yes, we have co-location. With this bizarre magic, a mage may freely stack multiple locations, allow them to interact freely. No damage occurs to objects that superimpose themselves on one another during co-location, yet they are solid to one another. Once separated, they will not superimpose again. Stacking entire areas instead of just objects is possible, but highly vulgar and considered difficult, and usually only done by desperate or crazed mages. And then spatial mutations, as I talked about, manipulating stuff, altering distances, and directions. You could literally make it so that somebody falls, and because they are falling, if you like trip them and they fall, you can make it so that down is up, so they will fall up to the ceiling. Yeah, you can do that with space. You can change directions. You can make all kinds of things happen. The limit is your imagination with correspondence and the manipulation of space. Just keep in mind that unless you are combining your magic that you want to cast with other spheres, and they'll have to be the proper level in order to affect things, because certain like entropy is, I believe, level 4 before entropy can be used to affect life. The same with, I think, forces and a couple of the others. It's got to be pretty high before you can affect like people. But once you get high enough, you can use your correspondence to manipulate all kinds of things. But unless you have those other spheres, the only thing you can manipulate is space itself. So you need to be careful how you go about doing things. You need to be tricky. You need to read up on this. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of cool things that you can do with correspondence, mostly around the manipulation of space. You can you can do oh the mind boggles for what you can do. It's pretty cool. And I've been going on for a while about this, so I'm going to call this episode here. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you are enjoying this, and I hope you will like it enough that you'll want to see the rest. So, what I was going to say, do the whole liking, yes. Like, subscribe, please. I'd really appreciate it. Ring the notification bell as well, and throw a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Let me know what neat little things you guys like to do with correspondence. Um, Maybe we can add some more that I haven't covered down in the comments below. Please do all that. And until next time, my friends, you all take care, and I'll see you next time.